Here we are again. So, the last but not least part of this topic on enzymes. Once again, it's me, Mr. K, your tutor. We're looking at the role of enzymes in seed germination and the uses of enzymes in biological washing powders, the food industry. Okay, so if we look here, this is the role of enzymes in seed germination. Why? Because we need enzymes for seeds to germinate. Why? Because seeds contain enzymes, except that these enzymes are inactive, which means they are asleep. The right word for that is they are dormant. Okay? But what activates enzymes is water. That's why we are always advised to water your crops once you plant seeds. Why? So that the seed will soak in the water, absorb the water, and the water will go into that seed, activating enzymes which are necessary. It is very necessary for enzymes to be activated. Why? Because in this seed there's something called an embryo plant, okay, which grows or germinates under specific conditions, which are, of course, the water. The other one is the oxygen. Well, we won't go into that because it's a much more deeper part of biology. But, anyways, the seed contains the enzymes protease and amylase. Now, protease, of course, digests proteins, and amylase, we know this from the previous video, digests carbohydrates, namely starch, into maltose. So, these enzymes, once activated by the water, as I mentioned earlier, soaked up into the ground, into the seed, I mean, there's an error there, but soaked up into the seed from the soil, begin to digest the food reserves. What are the food reserves? It's a starch. Seeds contain a lot of starch. That's why you see like millet seeds contain starch. Let's say rice as well. It contains starch as well. Yeah. Uh, Moving on. So protease digests proteins into amino acids, and amylase digests starch into maltose. Now, these nutrients are carried to the embryo plant, which lives off these in order to grow, and a root and shoot emerge. Which, of course, that shoot is the plumule, and the root is the radicle. Okay. Those aren't terms you should be worried about. Don't you worry. You only have to know about how the enzymes help bring about seed germination. Here, nota beta NB says that starch is insoluble, so it must be digested to soluble maltose, which can then be used as food by the embryo. One thing for you to know is that the food contained in the seed, that being the starch and the proteins, are insoluble biological molecules. And therefore, they must be broken down into simple molecules that this embryo can then use to grow and germinate the seed. Therefore, we need the water because the water, once soaked into the seed, will activate enzymes which will break down the starch into maltose and break down the proteins into amino acids. And that is the role of enzymes in seed germination. Moving on to uses of enzymes in biological washing powders, you do know well that you do know well that if you had a blood stain or egg stain, it wouldn't wash off with just simple detergents, right? So you would need biological washing powders, which are washing powders that contain protein digesting enzymes for tough stains like egg yolk or blood. Now, these protein digesting enzymes inside the biological washing powder will break down the proteins, making it easier for detergents to wash away the stain. Now, why? Because so the proteins are broken down into smaller molecules which are not colored, which we can't see, and therefore can be washed away easily with the detergent. Moving on to the food industry, baking industry here, enzymes speed up the breakdown of the starch in flour into sugar, and then the yeast then respires on the sugar to release carbon dioxide. Yes, it is my error that I wrote digest. It actually respires. Yeast respires. Yeast respires in what we call, I believe it is anaerobic respiration. I'll be making another video on that, on respiration itself as a whole, so we can see the differences. But yes, yeast respires. This much we know because we always add the yeast for the flour, or I mean the dough, to rise. So of course, this much I believe we know. That's why what causes the dough to rise are actually enzymes which have broken down the starch in the flour. Yes, then the last but not least, dairy industry. Here, enzymes help with the ripening of blue mold cheese. So there we go. We have finished with enzymes part 2. I guess I'll make this one enzymes part 3 then, because it's quite lengthy, 6 minutes, on the role of enzymes in seed germination, and the uses of enzymes in biological washing powders and the food industry. So if you have all this covered, you have all you need for your national examination come November.